Are we live, Alekhya? You want me to start? Okay. It's always better to confirm when we start on these live programs. And I've got such a beautiful host here, and I don't want to bypass her. So anyway, thank you, Alekhya. I know you're there with me all along.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to extend a warm welcome again to all the participants and the viewers on this beautiful platform of PMC Global. This is Saroja Gullapalli from Melbourne, and along with me, I have my beautiful host, Alekhya from Delhi. Today, before we dive into the part 4 of our beautiful story, the untold story of our Sita Ma, our own Sita Ma, as we do, as per our protocol, let's do the right thing first, which is dive within, go and reach within the depth of ourselves for the first few minutes. So my dear friends, could I request you to cross your feet, clasp your fingers, place them on your lap, gently close your eyes, and be with your breath. Focus on your breath, my dear masters. The first few minutes, as we close our eyes and be with our breath, step by step, we go deep within ourselves, reaching our inner silence, reaching our inner stillness, step by step, connecting to the great wisdom, to the great consciousness that connects us all. Be with your breath, my dear masters. As you connect to your deeper depths, your stillness, your inner silence, with the aid of your breath, could we all invoke the energy of Mata Sita to come to this platform and be with us? Be with your breath, my dear masters. Gently rub your palms together and place them on your closed eyes. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Remove your palms and open your eyes gently. My dear viewers of PMC Global, today we are about to embark on the episode 4 of this beautiful story of the Treta Yuga. Let's take the energies of Mata Sita along with us and move forward. Just as a last recap of where we left in the last episode, we're now into part 2 of this untold story of Sita by Madame Dana Miriam. As we just started the part 2 in the episode 3, the previous one. Where we left was Meenakshi, who has taken birth as Anasuya again in Ayodhya. She is visiting Soma in the ashram where Soma has been spending her time. Soma starts getting to know Anasuya a little bit better because when she sees Anasuya, that reminds her of Meenakshi. So as the conversation starts between the two, Soma asks Anasuya's mom what the name of the little girl is, and that's where the conversation we left. So let's start from that point, my dear masters. When the mother says that the little girl's name is Anasuya, Soma says, "Oh, so you are named after the great sage Anasuya." Mata loved her very much and would be very pleased with that. The mother says, "Yes, of course. She's named after Anasuya, the devoted wife of Rishi Atri. That's how they knew Anasuya." And that really makes Soma raise her eyebrows, and she says, "Is that how she's known in Ayodhya these days, as a devoted wife?" Sage Anasuya is as great as any sage who ever walked this earth, says Soma. She undertook such tapasya as only few male sages could do. And this earned her the adoration of the three great Devis, Lakshmi, Saraswati, and Parvati Ma. Through her tapasya, she helped to create many things on the earth that would shape its generations to come. She had the heart of a mother and the wisdom of a Gyani. This is what we mentioned when we finished last episode. So Mother Anasuya is a perfect balance of how a mother is. She has a heart of a mother which is full of love. At the same time, she is such a Gyani, she's such a scholar, and she knows how to balance the two. Her wisdom and love were perfectly balanced as per Soma, which is why Soma says she was able to help prepare Mata for what was to happen in Lanka. So this statement alone tells us that going to Lanka was not a coincidence. Going to Lanka was not forced upon Sita Ma. Instead, going to Lanka was a full preparation of Mata Sita. And this one statement tells us that even before the time that Sri Ram and Mata really met the entourage of Ravana and its force, Mata and Sri Ram were preparing for their entry into Lanka. So how beautifully the story or this vision slowly reveals about how Mata has been preparing for what was supposed to happen in Lanka. So this is how Soma reveals a little bit about Mata's preparation. And as you all know, our little Anasuya, she always had in this mind that there was something more than what people were talking about Mata Sita. At the mention of Lanka, a wave of pain rose in her chest because she knew there were emotions rolling out. And this is what she always knew, which Soma was telling at that moment. And then her mother said, "You have touched upon a very sensitive subject for my daughter. She refuses to accept that Maharani was captivated." And we all know the story, what happened in the Gurukula, the educational institute, where Anasuya had been going and had to run away from the school because she would never align or accept what was being taught as part of Ramayana in the school. And then Soma says, "I understand. It is perfectly natural for Anasuya to feel the way she feels. Perhaps all the more because she hasn't heard the true story." So then she turns towards Anasuya and says, "Child, you tell me, why do you feel that this captivity never happened?" So for Anasuya, the little girl, she doesn't know. It is just a feeling. Sometimes, my dear friends, this feeling is called intuition. Many times, there are so many intuitions that come in our mind. They are so strong. We know what we feel is true. But honestly, if someone asks to put a logic in front of that, those intuitions will not have a logic. And this is exactly what Anasuya is going through. This is her deep intuition. So she says, "I know deep inside, I just know it's impossible that anything could have happened to Mata without her will. without her consent. That's what she's been saying right from the beginning, that without Mata's consent, I do not think anything happened in Ramayana. So again, Ansuya is saying to Soma that this is how I feel. This is what deep inside me, this is the feeling I've always been feeling. And I know that Mata was not helpless, and she had all the resources and power to defend herself. And that is what I feel ever since I was a child. And this is what she's really talking to herself, because she's so glad that she can now share with someone who also kind of thinks in the same way and who has seen Mata. So who better than Soma can really tell what happened to Mata? And then Soma said, you're absolutely right. It was Mata's will that enabled Ravana to capture her. Such a great statement. Ravana captured her. Ravana captured Sita Ma, maybe a fact, but the greater truth that stands behind it is, it was Mata's will that enabled Ravana to capture her. So many of us do think, the story do we know, is it not right or wrong? The story that we have known about captivation may be true or is true. But here we are talking about the deeper meaning and the deeper story that went behind Sita Ma's captivation. So Soma says it was Mata's will that enabled Ravana to capture her. She knew that one of them, who is that one of them? Either Rama or Sita. Sita Ma knew that one of them had to enter the heart of the Ravana's kingdom. This is what right from the beginning, even in the beginning of the story, when we talked about the messages from this book, I said, this war, this battle against negative energy or Ravana is just not battle of, outside force. It happened in the outer realms as well as the inner realms. And that battle of inner realm was led by Sita Ma. Every time, my dear friends, whatever we see in this physical world, we all know it's a result of those inner realms, the inner works that happen deep within. And we, in the meditation, also in the spiritual knowledge that we learn about all the works that we do internally that manifest in the physical form. So all that Mata was doing the inner work for Ravana. And so coming back to the story that Soma was saying, she knew that one of them, this Mata knew either Sri Rama or Sita Ma, one of them had to enter the heart of Ravana's kingdom. And she knew it had to be her. And she accepted the responsibility. It was such a great responsibility. She put her hand first and she said, I will do it. But there is so much more to the story, says Soma. So much I have to tell. But then she goes back into a little bit of quietness and she says, but very few are interested these days. Back in Ayodhya or elsewhere, people would rather hear of the growth and wealth of the kingdom than of Mata's sacrifice. But honestly, it is Mata's sacrifice which brought such benefit to them, to all of us. And this is exactly what Soma is saying, that so much happened behind those battles that happened with Ravana, but only half of that story has really gone deep within everyone. Because this is what Soma is saying, people would rather hear of the outer things, outer achievements. Why? Because, my dear friends, that's why I did talk about the cyclic moment of time. Because every time in this book, as we go forward, the question of why keeps coming to our doorstep at every episode. And that's the reason when you understand the moment of our solar system, the moment of our Earth, going away from that magnetic center, coming towards the magnetic center. And we clearly said how that impacts the spiritual knowledge, the spiritual quest of human being. Then we understand that as people are coming out of Satya Yuga to Treta Yuga, and now this scene setting is just towards the end of Treta Yuga, going into Dwapar Yuga. Of course, the interest of people was all slowly turning towards outwardly interest, not inwards. So the work that Mata did was all in the inner realms. Of course, the inner realm work that Mata did was brought out into the limelight, not much. And this is what Soma was saying, that people would rather hear of the growth of the kingdom, which is all the outer realms work. But what Mata sacrificed doing the inner realm works, which brought so much benefit, very few people know. And at that time, Ansuya, who wanted to know the truth, she said, I must know the truth. Soma, can you please say something to us? And at that time, Soma says, okay, I will fix you some food. Because when Soma says, I will fix you some food, it is Mata who is serving through Soma. So it's such a beautiful way this particular chapter has been taken forward, that Soma, now that Mata has left her body and all the wisdom of Mata has been shared to Soma, Soma has taken upon her the responsibility of feeding people, because as we have learned before from Mithila, Mata has learned so much about how to share, how to serve, and that is what Soma is continuing. So when these people are thinking, oh, it's so much of a work for Soma at this age to fix some food, says it is Mata who will be serving you through me. Such a beautiful way, you know, this is the faith Soma has in Mata. This is how she sat in front of that flame, the beautiful flame that Mata lit before she went on the exile. And Soma could connect to Mata every minute because she believed that this particular flame was a portal to Mata. And again, here you see Soma's trust and faith in Mata. She's here, though Mata is not there. There's really nobody sitting in front of her, giving her order that you should serve to everyone who comes to your ashram. But this is her faith towards Mata. And hence she says to Anasuya and her mother that I would love to feed you because it's Mata who will be serving you through me. So again, you will see that the way Soma is cooking is exactly the way Mata used to cook. As we go forward, we see the way Mata used to cook, the ingredients Mata used to use. And at this particular point, Soma is exactly doing that. She makes a delicious meal of vegetables and wild grain. And then she makes a nice drink because it's summer and it's quite hard. So she makes a very good drink out of crushed berries. And not only that, Soma invites all the yogis who are passing by the ashrams, and she asks everyone to join them for the morning meal. This is the great quality of Soma that they show in this part of the book. This is to show that whatever Soma is doing is all the tradition that Mata has left for Soma to follow. And then Soma says, what would Mata say if I did not feed you people? I have to answer to her, you know. This is what is called accountability, my dear friends. These days, most of us, we only do things when we are being looked upon or monitored upon. But here, Soma is sitting. She knows Mata does not exist in the physical form, but the faith she has is Mata is always present in her energy form everywhere, and especially in her ashram. So she's saying, what would Mata say if I did not feed you? And with so much love, she starts serving to everyone. And she says, that is Mata's command. So before Mata left, Mata commands to Soma. She often said to feed all who come, not with leftovers, but with the best there is. And my dear friends, you know, this always reminds me of our great Guru Patriji. One of his motto definitely is meditation, but this next one is, you know, to feed people, to serve people, definitely not with leftovers, but the best there is. He loves to cook and feed people. These are the qualities of great people. It's serving and sharing their happiness through serving others. So as we move on with our story, she says, this quality of Mata, like feeding everybody, sharing everything that she had with everyone, and asking Soma to continue that seva, the service kind of attitude forward, it was all from Janak Baba and Sunaina Ma, from where Mata learned. Those were the two people who started this practice. Now you see, my dear friends, why Mata was born to such noble parents. Because as we have always mentioned, Janak Baba was a great yogi. Sunaina Ma gave him all the support possible and never was any hindrance to any of Janak Baba's work. And that is how the real true wedding and balance of life happens. Janak Baba and Sunaina Ma was a great pair who showed through example how they could do wonders for the humankind. And Mata, having been born and brought up in Mithila, she learned all this from Janak Baba and Sunaina Ma. Soma shares with Ansuya that in Mithila, their household, like we're talking about household, it's a palace. And the kitchen in the palace were always open to sages, the yogis, or whoever were coming, the wanderers, anyone coming from other kingdom. If anyone wanted food, they could straight away come to the royal palace, and the kitchen was always open. This was a custom that when Mata came from Mithila to Ayodhya, she brought that custom. So this is the good thing. If you remember, people, we did talk about Janak Baba saying, this is not just wedding of Sita Ma and Sri Ram. This is the wedding of two cultures, wedding of power with inner knowledge. And this is exactly what Janak Baba meant. Sita Mata, who took all the inner knowledge and wisdom to Ayodhya, also took this attitude of seva and service along with her from Mithila to Ayodhya. Then Soma says, sometimes in Mithila, this is so beautifully depicted. What does seva, what does service mean? This has to be learned from Janak Baba. So we should mention this. What is seva in terms of what used to happen in Janak Baba's palace? Soma mentions sometimes in Mithila, so many would come for food, but sometimes it would happen there would be nothing left. Of course, when you do not know who is coming and everyone is invited, the people in the kitchen would not have any idea how much to cook. So sometimes it happens that there would be nothing left. And Soma says, those of us who worked in the kitchen didn't know what we would do. Like there would be people sitting for, waiting for the food, but they have absolutely no raw material left sometime to even cook. But then look at Janak Baba's intention. When you have a right intention, see, my dear friends, what happens. And just at that moment, some farmer or the other would arrive with heaps of supplies and they would give it to the royal kitchen. And then these people will be again busy in cooking. This is the benefit from the gift of giving. People who practice giving with the attitude of absolutely no stoppage, they are not selfish, they have got selfless service, and this is what universe does to them. Not only this example, my dear friends, you might have come across so many people who believe in seva, who believe in sharing, and with those people they always have abundance. And this is a great example of abundance. Even in this morning, in one of my counseling, someone was asking, what is the key to abundance? And this is the key to abundance. The more you share, my dear masters, the more abundance comes in the life. The more you present gratitude towards this universe, the more abundance comes into life. And these are the little things that we are forgetting as our attitudes are more towards outer realm, into the materialistic world. Nothing wrong if we want to live a materialistic life, but when you want wonders to start happening in your life, these are the little things, the subtle inner wisdom that everyone should be aware of. This is such a beautiful secret of abundance, my dear friends. And this is the art, or this is the gift of giving that Mata learned from her parents, Janak Baba and Sunaina Ma. And Mata practiced, Soma is telling the story, and she says, Mata practiced this until the last day of her life on earth. And Soma says, I will continue it until she comes for me. So you now know that Soma is now counting her days, just waiting for Mata to come and get her, because Mata has given her instructions that while Mata leaves her physical body and goes away, she says, Soma, you still have work on this earth to do. As we go forward, we'll talk about it. You have to be there. When your time comes, I will come to fetch you. And Soma, who is such a devoted servant of Mata, is patiently waiting for Mata to come. But she's not sad. She is happily telling Mata's story. She's feeding everybody. She's serving everybody and enjoying every minute and making her life a celebration. Because of her old age, she's just not sitting in the hut and thinking, oh my God, when is Mata going to take me? That is not life, my dear friends. Through her life, Soma has demonstrated that doesn't matter what age you are, every moment you can live like a celebration by serving people. Such a beautiful example here. And then as Soma continues with the story of Mithila, it's one more beautiful example that Soma shares with us. She says in Mithila, there was once a time, there was a long drought and many people in the kingdom suffer because they suffered, Janak Baba just opened his kitchen to anyone who wanted food or anything. This is the greatness of Janak Baba. He never showed any difference between the royal people and the ordinary public. Everyone had access to the king and all the amenities in the palace. Such a beautiful way of ruling. Where can you find kings like Janak Baba? He's a yogi, but a king. He, it's a beautiful example of a leader. So you really get blown away when you see Janak Baba's love for his people. So Soma is continuing her story, and she says one day during this drought time when the kitchen was open for everybody, one day a couple was turned away by a new servant because the new servant did not know, the old servants know that this is what our king wants and this is how he likes. But this new servant, she saw that there was barely anything left. Janak Baba, nobody had eaten anything. So she turned away a couple saying, we absolutely have nothing in the kitchen. And she was right. But when Janak Baba came to know, though it is not something that he likes, he wasn't angry. He was never angry with his servants. He always treated everyone as his own family. And that's what Meenakshi and Soma, when they leave Mithila, the way he comes to the chariot and when he says goodbye to Sita, the 4 servants who are there accompanying Sita, he comes and embraces all of them and says, "You're all my daughter." See, that is the attitude of a king who sees everyone in his kingdom as his own family, his own son and daughter. That's such a great attitude. So here, though the servant has done something which he would not like, he wasn't angry, but he kindly instructed her, saying in future, he and his wife Sunaina Ma is happy to go without food if there is shortage, but please do not turn away anybody. So Soma is talking about this when she's talking about Sita Mata, what instruction she gave, that nobody should turn away from this ashram without food. And Soma is serving everyone. So she's telling all the story about Sita Mata and saying where Sita Mata has got this beautiful gift of serving. So Soma says this incident took place even before she came to the palace. So this must be even before Mata was born. But after Mata was born, someone told them the story, and this is how they came to know about this great incident and about the greatness of Janak Baba. And then she goes on saying, Mata once explained that it is against, this is a very important thing, my dear friends, very important. Everyone should underline this in our minds. And this is so much applicable to even today. This is what I love telling at every point of time. And this is so true that this story is just not about Treta Yuga. The things that we learn, the things that we keep revealing in the story is so applicable for any time in that cycle of time that we were talking about. And what here Soma is saying, that Mata once explained that it is against the law of nature to hoard food. What are we doing, my dear friends? Totally opposite to that. Soma says, nature, this is what Mata said, nature is designed in such a way that there is enough for everyone, only if no one takes more than their share. So as long as everyone takes as much as is enough for them, nature has the gift to give everyone. But it is greed that causes shortage. And so where the greed comes from, when someone takes more than his share, that is when it will cause shortage for someone else. And that's what we're doing, my dear friends, aren't we? Just take this example of COVID. Even before the lockdown started, there were heaps of messages going around that, buy enough, stock enough. What happened as a result? I don't know about the other countries that you're from, but definitely from the place that I am, matter of 24 hours, everything was gone in the supermarket. So someone who would go as a normal shopper, who would not find anything in the aisles. So you understand what Mata was trying to say. Nature has the capacity to feed everyone, enough for everyone. But when the greed starts, when people start hoarding, that is when the shortage comes. And this is my memory about this lockdown when it started is so fresh. We could not get anything in the supermarket. We had to wait for so long again for the stocks to come up. And what is this, my dear friends? This is what is called greed, which Mata has explained it so well. And Soma says, and the drought was caused by greed. So they were going through the drought at that time, which I said, and So Mata is explaining, and that drought which Mithila was going through was caused by greed. Now, where was the greed coming from? We all know Mithila was such a noble kingdom. No one would really do anything against the nature. But if Mithila people were not doing anything against nature, why were they going through the drought? And this is what Mata explains, that the greed was coming from the south, from Lanka. And that's where the Lanka, the negative attitude of Ravana and Lanka was slowly developing. So what Mata is trying to explain is what happens in one part of the world affects all others. Though things were happening in Lanka, the greed in Lanka was affecting other parts of the world in forms of drought, in forms of famine. Many times, friends, we don't understand. We think, why are things happening to us? What have we done? I know so many times we think, oh, we have led such a great noble life. Why are we going through this? What a great example to show us that the whole world is interconnected. We are not living in isolation, my dear friends. We are not living in isolation with the nature. We are not living in isolation with Mother Earth. We are not living in isolations with any species whatsoever. That knowledge and that understanding has to sink within us, that we are all part of this big fabric called manifested creation. Not only manifested creation, my dear friends, we're all part of the fabric which is manifested and the unmanifested world, which is a big fabric. And in that fabric, if something goes out of the balance, then the whole fabric hops for it. Such a beautiful way, the things that are being told, which is so valid even in this time, just that we don't understand. And when you realize that the whole thing is such a big picture, everyone needs to take one step back and just look at how we are leading our life. I really hope that this great story that we are sharing in different episodes on this platform would help us think at least one step, pause and think, are we doing the right thing in our day-to-day life? This is what the true purpose of the wisdom sharing of this book is, my dear friends. So back to our story. This is what Sita Mata shares with Soma. And she says what happens in one part of the world affects all others. But this truth is very little known. Even in those days, Mata knows that this truth is not known by everyone. And she mentions that Ravana at that time, he was sucking the resources from everyone. And as we go forward in the story, we will understand what were the resources and why Ravana was sucking the resources. So at this stage, and also, so here Soma is kind of reminiscing all the time that she was in Mithila and how Janak Baba and Sunaina were so generous in sharing things. And while saying that, she's gone back into those Mithila days. And she remembers the last moment when they said goodbye to Janaka, when they were going away along with Sita Ma to Ayodhya. And then she's saying that Janak Baba, exactly what I said before, Janak Baba embraced them and said goodbye. But what she mentions here is quite important. She says, when he was saying goodbye to Mata, something transpired between the two. And Soma says, even today, I really don't understand, but Soma feels that there was some kind of connection that they made in their inner realms. And after that day, Mata always, if she thought about Janka, she would receive a message. So from that day onwards, they started communicating. We call it telepathy, or through inner realms. And that is the greatness of Janak Baba and Sita Ma. Though they were physically apart after Mata's wedding, but they were always connected in the inner realms. So when Soma continues the story, when they left Mithila, she says, Sunaina Ma was very distressed because, she was losing both her daughters, Urmila and Sita Ma too. So that was really touching scene. And then she says, before Sita Ma left, Sunaina Ma, she took her precious pendant, a necklace with a pendant, and gave it to Sita Ma. And she also mentioned that that pendant was given to her by her mother when she left her house, and it was very precious for her. And so that she has given to Sita Ma. So Soma, when she's telling this story to Anasuya, when she goes back to Mithila, she remembers all those things and she keeps sharing. So this story you will see will be going forward from Mata's exile days to Mithila and back to the exile. And it's a wherever the important points are from Mithila, Soma slowly starts pulling it into the story of exile. And then she says, I will tell about the story of this pendant at a later date. So what Soma is saying is, remember, Anasuya, that Sita Ma received that pendant from her mother, which is quite important for us to remember. But about it, I will talk again. And then she continues the story and she says, when Sita Ma, she came to Ayodhya, Maharani Kausalya, who is Kausalya? Sri Ram's mother. She was so good that she knew Sita was coming from Mithila. And one thing she was always aware that she's coming from a different place. So I have to make her feel at home. So she sent a lot of artisans to find out what was, how Mata decorated her room in Mithila so that, she could keep her room exactly like the way Mata wanted. She found out what are the dishes Mata liked, and she prepared all those when Mata came. So she tried for Mata to be as much at home as possible, and that moved Mata so much. So even before she came to Ayodhya, Maharani Kausalya, which is Sri Ram's mother, had so much love for Mata. And when Mata arrived, Mata was so beautiful. So Mata, even if others didn't love, Mata loves, but if someone gave so much love, then you can see how Mata would be. And she says, right from the day one when Mata was in Ayodhya, everyone really fell in love with her. And as she was talking about Mata, this is what we see about Soma. Soma has grown old, but this is the story of Mata. By telling that, that is keeping her going. And every now and then she gets tired and she just closes her eyes. Then Anasuya thought, maybe this is the time we should go back because we see Soma is quite tired. So she says, both Anasuya and the mother says, perhaps you're tired, we can come back in a few hours. Why don't you take some rest? And then Soma says, I have no need for rest. I will answer all the questions that have drawn you here, because she knows, though mother has come so that Soma can convince Anasuya to get married, that is the main purpose why mother has come. But Soma knows Anasuya has so many questions for which she has come all the way. So she calls Anasuya, says, come and sit beside me. And then she closes her eyes and then she starts speaking. But this time when she starts speaking, they all notice that the voice has changed, as if someone else has entered into her. And then she goes into a deep trance kind of a state and start talking. And then she says, from the point where Mata and Sri Ram left for the exile, she says, I knew there was a far deeper reason for their departure. It was not for the purpose of keeping Dashratha's promise, or because Kaikeyi asked those two boons saying, Sri Rama should go to exile and my son should be king. So Soma is saying, she knew there was a deeper reason. This was not the main cause. Those were external causes, the outer conditions that enabled their departure. But deep inside, there was something else. The design for these events took form long ago in another realm. So what was happening to Mata and Sri Ram in the form of exile? The actual reason happened ages ago in different realm. And as we go forward, we'll come to that story. It's a long story, but we will talk about it again. We'll just go with the flow of Soma. And today, whatever Sita Ma, they're talking about that day when Sita Ma and Sri Rama went on the exile, whatever was happening that day, it was only to fulfill the deeper purpose of their birth. Because before even they were born, something much greater happened in different realms long, long, long before. This is how karmas happen, my dear friends. They are avatars. So they come for different reasons. But in our lives too, this is how the game of karma happens. Things we have done long ago, we come in different incarnations to fulfill them. And in terms of Mata and Sri Ram, they are aspects of divine consciousness. So they come for more divine deeds. So now Soma is saying, I knew this to be true because Mata, she left me hints. Mata gave her hints, which Soma had to uncover for herself. And as we know, Mata lit a sacred fire. I did mention about the sacred fire. Mata took a part of her energy and put it in a big bowl, and from where a beautiful flame came up. And she asked the 4 servants to look after the flame. And if you remember, she also said that make sure, make sure this flame is alive till I come back. And she said to Soma that this flame will provide a protective cover for Ayodhya. And she also said, through this flame, a part of me will remain in Ayodhya. And not only this, Soma keeps saying that over the time, Soma, though she would sit there just to chant the mantras that Mata taught her, she would start seeing images of Mata and Sri Ram as they were going on their exile, as they were going in their journey forward. Through the flame, she had established a connection. That's why I keep saying this portal, so that we understand. This was a portal through flame that she could keep connection with Mata and Sri Ram when they were in the exile. And not only that, not only she could see, but she could also hear conversations. And Soma says that I could follow most of them, to a great extent, she could totally follow their journey, their conversation. And then she understood on that day that Mata had left her a doorway, and that's why I call it portal. It was a doorway through which she could reach her. And throughout her journey, the doorway never closed. So it was always open for Soma to follow Mata until the point Mata starts on a journey to Lanka. And we will talk about why Soma is not able to follow Mata into Lanka. But till that point that Mata is going through the exile, all those 13 years out of 14, Soma is able to establish connection with Mata. And that's why Soma knows exactly, scene by scene, word by word, about what went on with Mata, or what happened with Mata and Sri Ram in their exile, though she was not physically there. So this is how we understand how Soma is able to tell story word by word from here on. So she explains, just as Mata's link with Janak Baba had never been broken. You remember the link I said when Mata was going away to Ayodhya? There was something that transpired between Janak Baba and Sita Ma. They could always communicate with each other, though they were not physically present near each other. Exactly, that is the kind of link that Mata provided to Soma, because Mata knew that Soma could not survive without that link, because Soma and Mata's connection, in the part one, I have told you, Mata did not have to open her mouth. If Mata felt like having something, Soma would have already done it even before that came out of Mata's mouth. So such a great connection. And of course, it was going to be very hard for Soma for those 14 years. And hence Mata provided that link to Soma. Because of that, we are able to listen all that great story through Soma. So then she says, one day when Soma sits in front of that flame, she could hear part of the conversations happening between Sri Ram and Mata, and between someone else. And when she pays a little bit more concentration, then she comes to understand that they are in the ashram of sage Atri and Ansuya. So now we are talking about the great Muni Atri and the great Yogini Anasuya. This is the first of the conversation that she's hearing directly between Sri Ram and Mata and Sage Atri and Sage Anasuya. This is when they have just started their exile, and they have just come to the place called Chitrakuta. So Chitrakoot is quite famous in Ramayana, and we know that, and this is where the whole conversation that Soma is telling us has happened, because that's where Sage Atri and Sage Anasuya resided. And when Sri Ram reached Chitrakoot, they along with Mata and Lakshmana, they went to visit Atri and Anasuya Amma. And at that time, Sage Atri, the conversation that he was having with others was, he was praising his wife. He was saying he hoped his wife would be a model for women, so that they all could pursue deep spiritual practices and do their part in helping to shape the earth and its future. We think at that time when Anasuya was growing up, people used to talk a lot about Sage Atri. But as you know, Anasuya Ma was only talked about as a devoted wife of Sage Atri. And here is what we are getting to know, the real story of Mata Anasuya through her own husband, Sage Atri. He is saying that my wife is such a great yogi that she should be a model for the women for the coming generation, because so that they all can learn that women can also do deep spiritual practices. And Anasuya Ma had done great meditation to help shape the earth for its future. So when such a great woman becomes a model for the coming generations, You can imagine what kind of women we will be seeing in the future generations. So this is what Soma was hearing. And then Sage Atri said, it was my wife Anasuya who brought to earth the great Mandakini river so that the inhabitants or the people could have a constant supply of water and the blessings of River Devi. We're going to talk about Mata Ansuya's work in more detail, but at this stage, this is what Soma was listening through, that the portal or the link that she had established. So this Mandakini river, which was in the greater realms, Mata Anasuya did such great penance to bring that Mandakini river from those lokas or from those greater divine realms to this earth for us or for the inhabitants who were struggling with the lack of water at that time. She was such a great yogini. Not only that, Sage Atri says she has many other accomplishments that are not commonly known. So she never talked about herself. Even people did not know, but her husband is saying that her spiritual achievements and accomplishments are so great, and yet she's so modest. She never talked about any of this. What a great thing, you know, husband saying that my wife is such a great yogi, and yet by the time we come to the end of that era, even Anasuya's mom did not know what this is our little Anasuya's mom, did not know what the great yogini Anasuya had done. So as we go forward, there are more details about what Sage Anasuya said. But at this stage, as we move forward along with Soma's story, she says, when Sri Ram and Mata were in Chitrakoot and they visited these two great people, so they showed Mata and Sri Ram a magnificent cave so that they can stay there comfortably. The cave was beautiful. This is their exile, so they have to stay somewhere. And because they are not very familiar with the forest situation, these great yogis who stay in that Chitrakoot, they showed them the magnificent cave. So the cave satisfied all their needs, but there was no water source. So when Mata was thirsty, Sri Ram was about to go fetch water, but then he could hear some water gushing from somewhere. And as he looks around, you know, what he sees is a spring that's coming out of the ground. So he says, oh, this is so beautiful. It's just outside the cave. But Sri Ram had not seen that before when they came into the cave. And he's wondering how suddenly this beautiful spring has come. It has just, the water fountain has springed out of the earth. And then from that water fountain, this beautiful divine energy comes out and says, I am River Godavari. I have come to seek blessings, Lord. This is what we were talking when I was talking about the cycle of time, my dear friends. Satya Yuga, yes, of course, all things in the nature, they realized that they had divine forces. They could come out with their divine energy and communicate with human beings. By the time Treta Yuga came, of course, you know, people had started moving little from their inner realms to outer realms. But even then, even in Treta Yuga too, the nature, the rivers, the mountains, they all realized the divine energy they had, and they would come out and talk to human beings. This is an example. So what all I have explained to you before I started the story, and we talked about the cycle of time, this is what it is. Every example that we see here connects us back to what we talked about, the cycle of time, and what happened in different yugas as we moved away from the galactic center of magnetism. So here we were still in that yuga where the rivers and where the springs came out in their divine energy form and people could communicate. So this is where the character of Godavari comes into Ramayana and Sita for us. And then this little fountain, the divine energy says, I've come for your blessing. And Rama is so happy. And then Mata, Sita and Rama, they come and give the blessings to the Godavari. And she says, I'm so happy that I have got your blessings. I'm your daughter and I will head south, but I will meet you one day again. So later we will see, and we all know, you know, Godavari, where it starts from Chitrakoot and then it goes towards south. And people who live in south, you know, we are very familiar with Godavari in its full form. So this is where the Godavari has started, and such a beautiful way of the emerge of Godavari saying, I'm your daughter and please bless me. So Mata Sita, who is the mother of everyone, is also the mother of River Godavari. So after Godavari takes blessings, she starts flowing towards south, And my dear friends, we will again meet Godavari in its full flowing form later in the exile when Mata Sita and Sri Ram again move towards south as they move forward in their exile. So before going, Godavari says, I'm going to leave this little fountain for you so that you people can have your, you can bath and you can have your water in private, everything. So special consideration for mother and father, and the daughter Godavari just moves forward. So this is all our Soma is hearing, sitting in front of that flame. She can connect to Mata and she's hearing all this beautiful conversation. And Soma says, while sitting by the flame, um, overhearing this conversation, she realizes um, one day when she's sitting in front of flame, she realizes that Mata wanted Soma to understand the deeper purpose of their exile. And this is where, one layer is kind of lifted for us to know a little bit more about the exile. So Mata had told her, um, even before they left for the exile, Mata did mention to her that sages were helping to preserve the teachings given by, Devas and Devis during an earlier age. We talked about this before when I was talking about the cycle of time, that in Treta Yuga, all those great rishis, Devas and Devis, they could just sit in meditation and, they could move to any divine realms, and they gathered so much knowledge from all the realms, and they brought it back onto the earth. And they never had the requirement to really write it down anywhere or to memorize it, because they happily kept it in their minds, and the memories were long lasting. So there was never a requirement to really preserve the teaching. But slowly, when you move from Satya Yuga to Treta Yuga, you slowly start seeing that people's connection to those inner realms is slowly declining with the declining arc of the time, and the memories are not that long lasting as it used to be in Satya Yuga. So now the requirement arose for preserving the teachings that were given in that previous Yuga. So for preserving, they started foundations for religious learning to guide the society, for the succeeding ages, because in Treta Yuga, they realized that now we have to start preserving this knowledge somewhere. Otherwise, in the coming yuga, so they were not thinking about themselves. They were thinking about the coming generation, that by the time we move, or the humanity moves into Dwapar Yuga and Kali Yuga, if they do not preserve the knowledge in Treta Yuga, the future yugas will have nothing to even look forward to. There'll be nothing preserved. So at that time, that is when the hermitages, we call ashrama, the gurukulas, that were formed, so that all those rishis could write down everything and preserve everything for the future generations. And Sri Ram knew from his time at the hermitage, when he went to Vishwamitra, and Vishwamitra, that's where his gurukula was, Sri Ram's, and Vishwamitra had, he had called upon him to help secure this foundation. So Vishwamitra had always requested him that it is his responsibility, Sri Ram's responsibility, to secure these foundations, to look after these ashramas, because these ashramas, as they all knew, were going to be the foundation for the succeeding ages. And this was the responsibility of Sri Rama given by Vishwamitra. So the main reason there, that was very important. And he knew that now, while he was going on this mission, when they started on the exile, Sri Rama knew that what all was happening in the forest, because the negative energies were already starting to trouble the hermitages where all this knowledge was being secured. And the time had come when Sri Rama had to move where the action was taking place. He could not sit in Ayodhya and try to solve some problem that was happening miles away. So he knew his presence was required in those jungles, in those areas where the ashramas were, and where, the security was in question. So even when at the time of, when he looked at Sita, and when he thought of, marrying Sita, the one reason, Soma says that the message she got from Mata was, the moment Sri Rama saw Mata, he knew that she alone has that capacity to withstand any difficulties and trials, that they would have to come ahead of their life. See, the lives they are choosing, they're basing it on the future, on their future work. Such noble thinking. And that success was of very, very important. And but as they traveled through the jungle, visiting the hermitages, they learned that the Rakshasas were creating great obstacles. So now in the exile, this is what they had come, because they knew that Rakshasas were becoming a big threat to the ashramas. And Sri Rama knew that Mata had to come with her. There was no way Mata could have been left behind, because Sri Rama's work was in the forest, in the jungles. And who better than Mata knows about forests? Right from her childhood, she has always been in the nature. Right from her childhood, she has been going through the forest. She knew everything that was in the nature, the animals, the plants, the medicinal plants, everything. So if Rama had to travel in the forest, in the jungles, in the deeper jungles for this long to realize his objective, then it was Mata's knowledge of forest foods and medicines that enabled their exile to survive that long. So Mata's support or Mata's contribution in the whole exile was of paramount importance if they had to survive those 14 years. And now we slowly understand, why Mata's going to exile was this important. Though Sri Rama was doing the external work, like doing all the battle, but in the next few pages, or in the next couple of minutes, we will talk about what was Mata doing when Sri Ram was doing the battles. Beautiful, my dear friends. And then Soma starts explaining the spread of Aryan civilization, which we call Aryan civilization, which has that was all determined. It was all determined at that time that this is how the Aryan civilization would have to go forward. And at that time, in the jungles, where the Rakshasas, or we call demons, or the negative energies that were really threatening the humans who were residing in that area, one thing was very clear, that the forests were being endangered because of that negative energies, the Rakshasas. So the forest community, they had to be taught how to cultivate the earth. And our Mata, she's expert in cultivation. We know what she has done. When she was in Mithila, she used to take that big plow on herself, and then she used to help farmers and teach them how to cultivate the earth. And this was the time when Mata's knowledge had to be put into use, because wherever they went in the forest to protect or to help the communities, it was so important to teach them how to cultivate. So Mata kept doing that job. So as Sri Rama was having the battle with Rakshasa, Sita Mata was teaching the community how to cultivate the earth. With the decline of forest that was supposed to be coming slowly, the forest food, because as population was keeping on increasing, and then people had to learn cultivation as well, and this was survival. So Mata was so good at cultivation. She knew the knowledge of the seeds, which seeds are better, what to do, and then how many kinds of vegetation that you can grow, so that people can live on plant food, not on human flesh. Because at that time, people who were living on human flesh, or flesh, was Rakshasas. So clearly mentioned, Rakshasas means those fierce eaters of humans, or meat-eating people, human flesh-eating people. And this is what Mata's contribution was. When she was going to forest, she was turning people all into making sure that they were all living on plant-based food. So to ensure that the plant-based food community kept increasing, she had to teach them the cultivation. She had to give them the knowledge of seeds and diverse food. See how much she's doing in terms of survival of the nature and the community. So because she was so good with nature, wherever she went, she taught the communities so that they could read the signs of nature. She would tell them, if the wind flows in this direction, what does it mean? If the birds are flying, this way. These are all the signs of the nature. So Mata, during the exile, as she was going through various communities, she was teaching them all this. While Sri Rama was trying to bring some governance to the community. See, this is what the external work and the inner work is. Nothing is low, or nothing is lesser or greater. Both need to happen in balance. And that's the most important thing. The one thing that is important is, while I talk about Sri Rama and Mata Sita, we need to bring those aspects in our life to understand what do they mean to us. So while Sri Rama was doing all the battle, not only that, he would protect the communities, kill the Rakshasas in that area, and then he would help the communities to have those self-governance, the one that I mentioned before, the self-governance that started in Mithila, and Janak Maharaj taught Sri Rama about how to come up with democracy, how to help the communities set up their own committees and have self-governance. So Sri Rama was setting that up as he was going forward, killing Rakshasas, securing the community, teaching them governance. When Rama was doing that, Sita Ma was doing all the inner work about teaching them how to be in balance with nature, how to understand, science of the nature, how to do things, to cultivate hand in hand, hand in hand. And this is what the example of life is, even in our lives. When we work in this material world, it's very important for us that while we are doing the outside work, we have to keep doing the inside work. We cannot have lopsided. The outer work can only be balanced with our inner wisdom. This is such a great example of work hand in hand, my dear friends. So even in our lives, when we are doing our day-to-day work, which is important, we have come onto this Mother Earth to do our karma, to do our purpose in life. So day to day, there will be activities we'll have to do. But one thing that we always have to remember is to keep our inner journey intact, because only if our inner journey is flourishing will our external journey flourish. So again, it's a balance between external and inner realms. And that's how beautifully here Mata Sita and Sri Ram were doing. So after every battle, how beautifully Soma explains this, after every battle that Sri Ram had, any community where Rakshasas were there and Ram was helping, in every battle, there is always loss on both the sides. The Rakshasas were killed, but I'm sure every community that went through that, they would have lost their people in that battle. The end would have been good. The Rakshasas would have been killed. But in that community, that particular community, there would be so much loss. And this is where Mata's contribution comes here more. See, we always learned that Mata could feel the pain. Do you remember the story that the first incident that I mentioned, when Mata was less than a year old, when she was taken to the hermitage, she wants to run towards the forest, and Meenakshi keeps bringing her back to the ashram. And then Janak Baba says, okay, let her go. And then that little girl keeps going into the forest till she finds that little furry animal who's badly hurt and brings back. How did Mata know? That is the pain that Mata has connected to the pain of everyone. And this is again another example for all the people who have been suffering with loss of their near and dear. Mata would bring them food and she would prepare a feast. And you would think, why would they want to have a feast when they have lost their loved ones? This is so important. The preparation of food is so important in this. Mata's preparation of food was just not like, okay, I get some vegetables, put that together, give them food. No, this is something we learn from this book, my dear masters. The food that Mata prepared was with so much love. That was one. The food that Mata prepared had a bigger objective. Yes, it had an objective to give them to satisfy their appetite, but more than that, it was for healing. Anything she did was to heal their heart and soul. So what did she do for that? She would use the kind of the medicinal roots that she knew were available in the forest. She would use the right the medicinal root and prepare food, that kind of food which when she fed them, that would help them to heal their heart and soul and able to cope with the pain of loss of their near and dear ones. In this book, my dear friends, especially in part 2, this keeps coming again and again about Mata's cooking and serving food. And every time, whenever someone is in great pain, this particular aspect of Mata has come always forward, that she takes so much effort putting the right ingredients, putting those medicinal herbs in it, cooking and feeding them love as well as healing the soul and heart. Amazing, my dear friends, amazing. So then as we move on with the story, here Soma is explaining the beautiful love between Rama and Sitama. So she says when they both got married, of course, newly wedded couple, the love was like a newborn bud. But with presence of each other, they have just, that has blown into a beautiful flower. And it wasn't a kind of love that you see between two people. This is in words of Soma. This was a all encompassing love, which we call unconditional love. It was all encompassing. I think that's the better word, because whoever sat with them when Mata and Sri Ram was together, if you happen to sit there, that beautiful aura or that encompassing love, you would also drown into that. And what you would feel is just presence of that love, the flow of love. So whoever came in proximity to Sri Ram and Mata, that love really encompassed everyone. That's the kind of love they had. And when Sri Ram had to go on exile, nobody questioned if Sita Ma has to go or not, because everyone knew that they both completed one another. So there was really no question of, Sri Ram will go and Mata Sita won't go. The question never appeared. That was the kind of love. And as they journeyed through the jungles, Soma says, their love was deepening, reaching new levels of unity. So, my dear friends, really that true love has got nothing to do with external circumstances, whether they were in the forest, whether they're in a palace, did they have a proper house, were they sleeping on the floor? Nothing mattered. When it came to that all-encompassing divine love, nothing mattered between Sri Rama and Sita Ma, where they were. So the external factors hardly impacted that love. Instead, those years in exile, they had a chance to understand each other, and the love was blossoming more beautifully. That's how, as Soma was following them on their exile, this is how beautifully she explains. And some incidents that we should talk about, um, how much they cared for each other. It's beautiful. So they sometimes, they are in the forest, and not all the time can they really get all the ingredients to cook enough for all the three. So there are times, when Mata Sita would cook and there would be little, but Mata Sita would serve. This is an incident when Mata Sita serves Lakshmana and Sri Rama. Um, and then Sri Ram says, how come you're not eating? And then she says to Sri Rama, when you eat, I am full. And Sri Rama says, and the same with me. And so beautifully he says that, Sita, through your mouth, my stomach gets full. Like you take a morsel and I feel I have eaten. This is such a beautiful conversation. And this particular incident ends up so well. So Sita Ma has served plateful for Rama and plateful for Lakshmana. And there's nothing else left. So Lakshmana sees his plate full and gives half to Mata, serves half of his full serving to Mata. So Mata gets half of Lakshmana serving. And here Sri Ram gives her half from his plate. So finally Mata gets a complete plate, and both Sri Ram and Lakshmana, they've eaten half. This is just an example, but what it shows, my dear friends, is the love that those three people shared. As we all know, Lakshmana loved his brother. That's the only reason he left his wife behind and came along with Rama. Look at the love. This is the selfless love between three divine people. And as Soma explains, if Rama had the slightest wound, Sita Ma would cringe in pain. And there were times when Sita Ma would be ill, and because Rama doesn't know about this medicinal plants, so he had to ask Mata, what do I bring? And Mata would instruct exactly what to do. And he would take his instruction and go and find in the nature or the forest and get exactly the medicinal root. See, he was never shy of taking instruction from his wife. They both understood what were their strengths. Sri Rama knew what was Mata rich in, the inner knowledge, the nature knowledge, the giving, the sharing. Rama accepted that. And Sita Ma knew the strength of Rama. This is what a true wedding is. You accommodate, you complement each other. And this is what wedding is, so beautifully. What Sri Ram didn't have, he did not think, oh, Sita Mata had, I'm low in that. There was no competition between them. And that is the secret of a successful marriage. One complements the other so beautifully, the way it has been depicted in the story. And Mata once tells Soma that, I see threads of light connecting me with Sri Rama. And so I really don't have to speak, because those light threads that are there between me and Sri Rama, our thoughts just flow through that. And hence Sita Ma and Sri Rama, there's really hardly any verbal communication they have to do unless they want to, because they understand what the other person wanted. And as she keeps talking about this, um, Soma is such a beautiful way thinking about Mata, and she just closes her eyes and she goes into meditation. Um, and Now these people are just waiting there. They don't know whether to leave, or so they are just waiting. Maybe Soma will open her eyes, and she'll start speaking back. And then she asks, um, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? And then she says, I'm thinking what a blessing it is that we have been able to meet Soma, says her mother, and they both are so happy. Um, so they came for one reason, but look what they ended up with, getting such a beautiful story. And now they think that Soma is sleeping, so we should not sleeping, sorry, in meditation. So we should not bother her. We should come back the next day. So having said that, they both go back to the ashram where they spent the night before. And there, the ashram guru, he asks them, he says, or did you have a chance to speak to um, Soma? Because as per that guru, Soma is always in meditation. She's not speaking with people much. So he says to Anasuya and her mother, or did she even speak? And then Anasuya tells him all about, this wonderful story about Sita Mata that they have heard through Soma. And she says in particular, I was very, very impressed by what Mata has learned from Maharaja Janaka about, sharing the food of the household when there was drought in Mithila, and what Mata learned from his father about what causes shortages. Like we've heard this conversation before, isn't it, my dear friends, when we say, nature has got for everyone. It's only greed that causes shortage. So Anasuya is explaining all this to the guru of the hermitage. And then the guru says a very good thing. He says, that's true. What Soma is saying as Mata's words are very true, because he says excessive wealth causes poverty. My dear friends, what guru says here, saying what Soma has said is right, is so important. He says excessive wealth causes poverty because it blocks the flow of nature's resources. So the nature's resources have to flow. But if somewhere, people are having more wealth than they should, that causes poverty. And he says when too much accumulates in one place, shortage arises elsewhere. This is what we learned before, that the whole fabric of this creation is interlinked. That's what that guru is explaining us. He says, when the river is flowing unobstructed, all the river water goes nicely where it needs to be. But if there is a blockage in the river, what happens when you try to block the river? Slowly, the silt starts accumulating one after another. And once that silt starts accumulating, what happens? It's a stagnated river. And then that can result in diseases. That's where diseases come from, when you have stagnated water. As long as the water is flowing freely. This is what he says is the truth about nature. And he says that not many people have learned this, but animals seem to know this well, because they know how much they should take, because they don't have greed. This greed quality is the dangerous quality only human beings have. And he says Maharaj Janaka was so wise. He had so much inner knowledge, because he understood the law of nature very well, and he built his kingdom upon those very laws. Hence, all the people in his kingdom knew nature so well, because he valued knowledge more than power. He was never thirsty after power. He never wanted to go and rule over other kingdoms. He was so happy where he was. And the guru says in the hermitage, as the years advance, we will see the position of his kingdom weaken, because knowledge will not be the prime value of the future. This is so important, my dear friends. Here the hermitage guru is talking about Mithila and Janaka, and he says, though this is the greatness of Maharaja Janaka, but as the years will advance, we will see that Mithila will just decline and decline. Why? Because of the coming times, knowledge will have no value in the future. That is what we are seeing, my dear friends. What will have power? The external power will be of value. And that's exactly what we are seeing. People who have wealth, people who have power, those external power, that's all we see. And if we have to say who is great, Those are the people, people with fame, name, money. This is what is happening. Who cares about inner knowledge but for a handful of people? And this is what the Guru is saying of the hermitage. And he said, one of Sita's main lesson for us is to know and live according to the nature. And that is why that Guru says that, because this is where Sita came, in this particular hermitage. This is where she spent her last days. That's why Soma is there. She doesn't want to leave the place. So now this Guru of the hermitage is saying that one of Devi Sita's main lessons for us is to know and live according to the law of nature. And that's why she came here. She retreated here to raise her sons so that she could gain this knowledge. Another main point here, we all understand that, she was sent out of the palace for whatever reason, she had to prove herself, or there were other stories. But one of the key things that we have to learn behind, behind all that may be the external story, but for that external story, there are reasons behind why things happen. And this is the reason, one of the main reasons why Sita, at the time when her children were being born or about to be born, she moved into this ashram, into the nature, because one of the reasons, there are other reasons which we are going to talk, they're much bigger reasons, but this is one of the main reasons. She retreated in this hermitage to raise her sons so that they could gain this knowledge about the nature. She chose purposely not to remain in the palace with all the comforts, because she knew to follow the example set by her father. Her father made sure that she was freely going into the nature. She knew exactly about the nature, because about palace, anyone can learn it anytime. But this knowledge that somebody has to learn when they're young has to happen in the nature. So he says, this is one of the reasons why Sita Mata came here. So when Anasuya listens or hears all this from that Guru, then she thinks, yes, this is exactly what I thought. Sita Ma must be having a greater reason why she came here. And then one of the hermitage residents, because there are a lot of students there, it's an ashram. So that student asks exactly the same question, which the little Anasuya always thought was right. And he asks, so it was Sita Ma's choice then coming here. And then the Guru laughs and he says, of course, everything that happened in Devi Sita's life was by her choice. So this is the Guru of the hermitage, where Sita Ma came and had her two sons and spent the rest of her life there. Over the time, the Gurus might have changed, but it's the same hermitage where the story is going on. And that Guru says that everything that happened in Devi Sita's life was by her choice. And at that time, Anasuya just keeps wondering. So Ayodhya was a center of power. So were we not knowledgeable? So all these questions are coming in our minds. So Devi Sita left to live in the nature. So that means in Ayodhya, people did not honor the knowledge. So all these questions are coming up, but she cannot ask the Guru because she's not very familiar with her. But she thinks that next day, when I go to Soma, I'm going to ask her all these questions which I cannot ask the Guru. And so what she says is, it's time for them to go to sleep. And the previous night, because she was so excited to meet Soma, she hadn't slept. And this night, she sleeps like a log, because now she knows that all my questions, all my doubts will be clarified, because I found the right person, Soma, to tell me the it's like a first-hand recount of what happened with Mata. And she sleeps so well, to the point that next morning, she woke up so late that she has missed her morning meal at the hermitage. And when her mother comes there, says, we have to start for Soma's and you have missed your meal. She's not worried about meal. She's so excited that she's going to meet Soma, and they will continue the story, and she's going to listen about Mata from Soma. And the moment they go there, they hear Soma's voice saying, I've been waiting for you people. Come, I have made delicious meal for you. Again, you see Mata's samskaras, Mata's gift that has been given to Soma about serving people. She has made a delicious meal for all of them. And so she wants to happily serve the mother and daughter. as she's serving the mother and daughters. As I said before, all the yogis that are just finishing up their spiritual morning practices, they all come and join them for the meal. And then she's serving happily to everyone. This is the quality, again and again this book has shown, that this is Mata's attitude that has come through Soma. And then when Anasuya addresses Soma as Mataji, because she's quite elderly compared to what Anasuya's age is, Soma says, no, no, no. There is only one Mata for us all, and that is my Sita Ma. No other person can ever be Mata. You call me by name. I'm Soma. And they both have now established a connection. And we all know why Soma is so eager to tell this story. Because if you remember in the past, before Meenakshi is about to finish her previous incarnation, Soma does say that I will be waiting for you. I don't know if you still remember the last words, because Meenakshi asks Soma that I'm really feeling homesick. I want to go to Mithila. I'm just reminding you people. These are her last words before she finishes her incarnation. She says, I'm quite homesick. I wish I was in Mithila. And then Soma says, this is your home. Why do you feel like going to Mithila? She says, I don't feel at home here. I don't feel I have anyone there here. And then Soma says, you will feel at home at Ayodhya. She's talking about her next life already. You will feel at home at Ayodhya. And at that time, Meenakshi asks Soma, will you be there then? And Soma says to her, yes, I will be there for you. So this was the last words of last conversation between Meenakshi and Soma, after which Meenakshi leaves her body and finishes that incarnation. Soma is still continuing her physical incarnation show. So she remembers all the conversation she has had with Meenakshi. She is so eager to give all the information and all the story about Sita Ma to Anasuya, because she knows, Meenakshi knows only part of that story. And deep within Anasuya, she has this intuition or eagerness to know what happened to Mata after that. So this conversation that is happening is basically Soma giving all the recount of Mata to our Meenakshi in her next life, which is Anasuya. So my dear friends, today we will stop at this point, because when we start our next episode next week, we will continue from here and start the story. I have really enjoyed this episode 4, telling all the great things about Mata and Mithila. And just a reminder for all of us, when we listen to this story, it's really appropriate from time to time just to check where we are, what we are doing in our lives. And after this, I will hand over to Alekhya. So thank you very much. Have a great week. I will catch up with you soon. Thank you. Over to you, Alekhya.
Thank you so much, ma'am. While Anusuya eagerly waited for Soma to continue with the story, I think all of our viewers, including me, wait for you to tell us and recount all of the stories. And there are so many things, and you weave in so perfectly the things that we might forget. And the stuff, the point where you reminded us, where you said that it was actually Soma who used the words, who gave a word, and is fulfilling the word itself of being there with Meenakshi and now Anusuya till the end, where Anusuya can feel at home. And there's so many different metaphysical concepts as well that you've brought to light, such as communication through the ether, the fire that you said, that Soma could actually hear all of these things about Sita Ma. And the last point where we learn about goddess Sita's ability to be in multiple places at the same time. And of course, the great occurrence which led to Lord Rama and Goddess Sita to actually go to the forest. There's a divine purpose that actually causes all of these occurrences and these situations in our life. The universal law is applicable even for the celestial beings. Has been so beautifully explained in this book. And the very fact that the point where you said that the past fears of Anusuya actually with Meenakshi, which now has become Anusuya's fears, have led her to fulfill the purpose of this beautiful knowledge being shared with all of us. And I think that really is a point of reflection for all of us. We always see fear as a way that's binding us, but there's much more than that. This journey of this book is has been a great way for us to unravel something which is deep inside of us, and is a yearning from our soul itself to address these within ourselves, because the time has come now for us to implement this knowledge. So thank you so much, ma'am. And we're so fortunate, and I'm so lucky. I feel so grateful that I get to announce this. The author of this book, The Untold Story of Sita, Miss Dana Merriam, ma'am, is actually going to join us in a wonderful conversation facilitated by Saroja, ma'am, tomorrow, April the 25th at 5 p.m. Indian Standard Time and 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, where you will get to ask your questions right from the author itself. And of course, it's going to be a wonderful interaction because we're going to see Saroja, ma'am, who for us is the creator of the story for us, and of course, Meenakshi, Anusuya, Dana, ma'am, all encapsulated in one. So this is going to be a divine meeting. Very, very rare are these opportunities, and we're so lucky that we get to witness something so extraordinary in our ordinary lives. So please tune in or at 5 p.m. Indian Standard Time or at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow at PMC Global to watch this grand happening. And we will continue with the story next week once again from where we left off. If you have any questions, feel free to write into us at pssmnorth@gmail.com. And Saroja ma'am is available on Facebook under the name Saroja's Self Empowerment. Thank you so much, ma'am, once again for giving us so much wisdom that is so required in this present time. So until then, keep watching Pyramid Meditation Channel Global for more such news. Thank you.